and go ahead.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Ken Mingus. Welcome back to Mingus on Tech. We're here today to talk about Windows 10 and the future of operating systems. I've got Editor-in-Chief Scott Finney to my right. I've got Windows Guru and Operating System Maestro, Preston Gralla to my left. It's going to be a good show. All right, and we're back. And also we're on Facebook Live. If you've got questions for us as we're talking about Windows 10 Creators Edition, Creators Update, or operating systems in general, and you want to weigh in, please add a comment, and one of the producers here, Chris or Doug, will see if they can flag us down, and maybe we can answer it. So, Preston, all right, coming up soon from Microsoft, Windows 10 Creators Updates, due out sometime in April?
Yes, supposedly by April 11th, maybe even earlier. There's a lot of indications that it's almost ready to be compiled. I wouldn't be surprised to see it in early April, and maybe even to insiders, even late March.
I was just wondering if it might show up by the end of next week just to get in under the wire.
It could. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with the least interesting thing about it. Do we have any idea why it's called Creators Update? Because it's not really adding a lot of creativity or anything major, right?
Well, of course not. Microsoft is the worst company in the world at branding. I mean, remember, this is a company that when it brought out Windows 8 and had these new type of apps, it called them Metro apps for no reason.
Which made no sense.
But not only that, they hadn't bothered to check whether they could legally use it, and they couldn't.
So that's why they had to go to, they changed them to modern, right?
Well, actually, first it was Windows 8 style, then it was modern, then it was Windows Store, then it was Universal, and today it is Windows Apps.
Okay.
So that's why it's called the Creators Update, because it sounds exciting to them.
Yes, I've got Creators Update. Yep. I'm creative now.
Right.
Because I've got this.
Are you excited?
Well, I'm an Apple guy, so
I'm excited.
I'm not as excited probably as you are, but I mean, understanding that, and so you guys will have to help me out with the Windows stuff here. But understanding that obviously this is important to Microsoft because they are trying to do these routine or regular updates at least a couple a year now. So can you give me, you've had a chance to play with Creators Update.
I've been using it.
Can you give me maybe an overview of some of the changes that people will notice, even if they're small, obviously to, users, these things matter.
Right, yeah. It's generally a modest update. I'd say the biggest complaint, there's a lot of complaints. One of the biggest complaints people have about Windows 10 is that it updates whether you like it or not.
Oh, yeah. It's
and
been a huge issue.
It could happen at any time.
It's getting worse.
It is getting worse.
Are you finding that, really? It's still,
they've got, settings that are, that you can't use anymore in certain builds.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. And so the one really nice change will be that you can say when it will update. You could set a date and a time when it will update, which is nice. And also you can put off the update for 3 days.
Okay.
And
can you do that indefinitely?
That's what I was going to say. You could push it. Now, as a practical matter, that's a real bad idea because you're going to lose out on all the security updates. However, why it's good is sometimes updates are bad. There's problems with them. Put it off for 3 days or 6 days. See if there are any issues. If there are no issues, set a time.
See if they've updated the build.
That's exactly right. And you could keep putting it off till there's a good fix for a build. So that's probably the biggest thing for most people.
So it's the flexibility of being able to, so you're in the middle of doing something. You get the note that there's an update, a notice, and you don't want to deal with it right then. You can push it off. Or you can schedule a specific time, like I want to do it at noon on Friday or whatever.
Exactly right.
Give you a sense of it. In the last 48 hours, I have installed 3 separate Windows 10 preview builds.
That's right.
Why is that? Wait a minute. Are they rolling out? Are they distinct builds?
This is an indication that it's coming soon.
They're not very different from each other.
Yes,
it is. I think it's this week that Creative Update
I wouldn't be surprised. There's been 4 in the last 10 days, and the most recent one that they did last night,
RS2.
There's like 2 tiny little bugs in it. Right. There's nothing. So the pace of the updates plus the insignificance of each update makes me think, I think you might be right, Scott. It could be this week or next week.
But don't say RTM because they don't like it.
Right.
No,
say release to the world.
It's release to people, RTP, right? All right, so schedule updates or flexibility with doing the updates. There were also, I think, there's some changes to Edge, to the browser.
There are some changes to Edge. One of the nice things, well, depending if you like Flash or not, if you're one of the few people in the world who likes Flash, but if you're not, if you're like the rest of the world, all Flash content by default is now turned off.
Okay.
Previous version, what they called inessential Flash content, inessential for them, they were ads. Not
I was just going to
inessential
say,
for
it's
everybody.
advertising, right?
Yeah,
We love advertisers.
that's
Don't get me
right.
wrong. We
Right.
love
Exactly.
advertisers.
Right. So
Come
that
to
has
us.
But now all Flash is turned off.
Okay.
You could turn it on a site-by-site basis if you want. And so the default then is if it is an ad or if it is content, what happens is it defaults to HTML5, which people should be using anyway,
Right.
instead of Flash. So there's that. There's also thumbnails for tabs. So if you want to see all your tabs, what's going on each tab, there's thumbnails, which I like a lot. Because if you have a lot of tabs open, you're kind of clicking and hunting and
like
pecking.
you can't tell which tab is what.
Right, here you can. And then a nice little thing, you have a lot of tabs open. You want them open again at some point, but not now. You want to save a little memory. There's a button you can click. It saves them all. They all go away. Now you want to reopen them all. Click a button.
Boom, they all
back
pop
open.
out.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be a time saver,
Yeah,
ideally,
absolutely.
and help people get
Yeah.
a little more organized with
Yeah.
their browsing.
Right. Now what's missing is the big problem with Edge is extensions. Yes, there can be extensions, but no, they are not there. They are still not there. I mean, there's some...
Microsoft has a tendency to do this, where they will say we're going to roll out these things later on, and then they never deliver. Didn't
Well,
they do it?
they kind of hit a funny point in the market where, Firefox is requiring security assurance before a patch. I mean, they probably wanted to wait and let it kind of shake itself out.
Right, I
So
think
they
you're
don't roll
right.
them out prematurely, you mean? And then
Well,
have to
it
redo
just
them?
it wasn't clear when Edge came out where browsers were going, and now what's clear is that everybody's basically ignoring all that security stuff.
That's right. That is very true.
It's interesting. A slight diversion here, though. One of the things that seems to, we've had some stories about how the Edge browser is losing ground rapidly to Chrome, and that in part because
Internet
Microsoft.
Explorer.
Huh?
Internet Explorer.
Well,
I mean, the Edge browser doesn't really have much of a market.
That's the
Explorer
problem,
and
it's
Edge.
even-
I mean, the combined Explorer
Right, yeah,
Edge.
that's-
Right,
I'm sorry.
right.
Yeah, I should be clear. But that there seems to be a lot of movement in the Windows world toward Google Chrome as a browser. What is that? Is that just because people? What are they liking about Chrome or not liking about Edge? That
Well, Firefox doesn't run extensions half the
Okay.
time.
yeah.
Right.
I think it's more like what's wrong with the other ones than what's great about Chrome.
Yeah, and I think a lot is extensions. I mean, they could do all kinds of stuff that you really like to do.
Yeah.
And Edge can't do it. I mean, there's 24 of them, and that's it.
And Internet Explorer is
No, well,
Yeah.
that's we're looking at the rearview mirror when it comes to
Exactly.
IE, and which is
Yeah.
the way Microsoft wants it. But that
Right.
was the problem. They're
If
trying
they
to
gotta
push people.
put extensions in. I mean, it's just. I mean,
Well, what happened is when I was here, when we talked about the anniversary update, we talked
Yep.
about this. We talked about the problem that there weren't enough extensions. And I said then, well, it's a chicken and egg problem. If you don't have enough users, you can't convince extension developers to develop it. And so
Right,
how
it's
do
not
you
worth
do
their
it?
time to do it.
That's exactly right. And at that point, I said, no chicken, no egg, because there was none of it.
Nobody eats.
6 months later, no chicken, no egg still. The extensions still aren't there. And Microsoft has often done a really bad job of working with third-party developers to get them to
it
write
used to
for
be
stuff for
so
them.
good at that. I
You-
mean, that was what it did best.
Exactly right. That's why Windows became Windows and became dominant. It's, well,
Exactly.
you want to run applications, get an operating system that it get Windows.
Right.
Now they just can't convince people to do it. And I think that's because it's not about the operating system as much anymore. It's, do you really download and run apps? No, you go to a website that's an app.
Right. Yeah, most everything you can
So
do.
Microsoft, I don't think people have the faith in. I mean, I hate to say it, but I mean, as an ISV, I'm looking at it and going, well, what are they going to do next year?
Right.
I mean,
Well, as you said, here we've got this creators update. It's the first update since what, last summer? Is this
last
the first
summer.
one since the anniversary update,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
And we're talking about some tweaks to the update process, some tweaks to the Edge browser, some tweaks to the start menu, and some UI changes that are
Right.
minor. It seems like an awful lot of stirring around for Microsoft to deliver something that's fairly light in terms of what it's giving users.
And the problem is the last time they did something big, they blew it. Windows 8, right? One of the worst operating systems ever developed
that
by
was a
any
disaster.
company
Yeah.
anywhere. And so I think they might
Or
be
Windows
gun-shy.
8.1.
Well, yeah, there was also Vista.
There was Vista.
I think you're right. 8 was in some ways worse because it bifurcated what they
Yes.
were.
8 was worse.
And
Yeah.
it came at a worse time for the company because it had to do something at that point if it was going to make a jump into mobile,
Yeah.
and it completely blew it. I mean, it's dead in mobile. It's not going to happen now. So it was a terrible operating system at the worst possible time for it. I really think they're gun shy and they're just really scared
I
about.
think that's what all this Windows as a Services thing is. I mean, they're not going to build these big upgrades that, hurt them financially if they don't
Right.
succeed.
That's
Well,
right.
I wonder too if the marketplace or if the way people access the web or use operating systems is changing so quickly now that this process that Microsoft used to have where they would go for 2-3 years between operating systems, how are you going to know now in 2017 what a user's going to need in 2020? And you spend all that time, all that development, all that money, creating this operating system, and it might be a misfire. I mean, having done that, as you say before, they don't want to do that again. So it's all
The
these incremental
it's the
stuff.
Apple model. They've really kind of adopted what Apple's took the lead in this. And Apple does these bigger releases,
Right.
and I think Microsoft needs to do something a little more.
Somewhere in between where they are now and what they were doing. Well, once a year
Right.
update would be fine. That's
As
close.
long as it had something substantial.
You've got to have something to add. Well, now,
That's it.
I will say Apple, though, over the last, I would say 3 or 4 years, has had a couple of operating system updates that have been very minimal.
That's true.
And they've even
But
couched it.
they've offered performance gains.
Yeah.
You're right that they haven't added features in a while, serious features, just
Right.
small things, but they're generally more. There's more oomph there. At least that's what I've noticed the last couple times.
Yeah. Okay, so Windows, Windows Creators Update, not really for creators, obviously rolls in a lot of security fixes.
Right.
So it makes sense for people to go ahead and do the update. There's no reason not to,
And
as
whether
far as
you
we
like
know.
it or
knock
not, you
on
have
wood.
to do it. I mean, you're not going to be,
Yeah.
it's, if you have Windows 10, one way or another, it's coming at you.
Yeah. Okay.
What
good.
does it add? Aren't there some apps or something?
Not there's a Paint is turning into a 3D app, so
Right,
I guess
right.
you could say it's a creator's update for that. But how many people are going to use it? There's really not many new apps. One thing, maybe why they use the word is under the hood, they're adding a lot of 3D and virtual reality stuff, and
So some hooks for future things to connect
and
to?
even present, because I'm pretty sure that when it comes out, there's going to be virtual reality headsets that are going to come out in concert with it, and Microsoft is going to make a push for that. So I think that's probably why they're calling it Creators Update, and maybe they think that's the next big thing.
Maybe they know something
the
we don't.
creators are developers,
Yes.
not people sitting around their living room like they show in their videos.
Let's create something.
That's exactly right. And that's where the confusion is, because Microsoft sort of got confused itself, and they're thinking of the creators. Well, creators are going to make things for it, forgetting that if you call it Creators Update, why should a user be the creator?
The assumption
That
is
is
that the
weird.
user is the
Yeah,
creator.
very weird.
It's interesting talking about, again, slightly a tangent here about AR and VR, though. There does seem to be more energy in terms of what developers are doing or big companies. I mean, there's been a lot of talk that Apple's going to roll out a lot of AR stuff with iOS this year for the new iPhone in the fall. And I wonder if, maybe that's where Microsoft is going. They're putting some things in place for the next operating system update, which we presume would be November, maybe, this year, if they get one in
probably,
this year?
Yeah, probably. They
End of the
will.
year.
They'll get one in the end of the year.
Yeah, okay. All right, so Windows 10 Creators Update coming soon to a PC near you, whether you want it or not.
That's right.
Enjoy. Which gives us a nice little launching pad. Scott and Preston and I were talking a little earlier about just operating systems in general. And Preston has some interesting thoughts on where operating systems are going or whether they're even going away completely. So, let's go back to that because I thought that was really interesting. You were talking about Alexa.
Yes, well, what I said is that up until now, operating systems are app-centric and file-centric.
Right.
It's you have files, you use applications to run those files, and that's what you do at a computer. And what they've done is they've all moved to the cloud now. All the files have moved to the cloud. So wherever you are, there your files are too, and that's really one of the biggest changes. But in the future, I don't see that as the future of operating systems. I think the future of operating systems is really Amazon Echo and devices, and and software like that, because increasingly you're going to want to interact with the world. Increasingly, it's not about files and applications, it's about you.
It's about doing things.
Yes.
You need some information. You need to, and you can use voice commands now
Right.
to get what you need
Right.
wherever it is because it's
Right.
in the cloud.
Exactly. And one example why I don't know how far in the future it'll be, but there's no doubt it's the future, is that I have a niece, and she has a 2-year-old son.
Okay.
She just bought him a toy watch, and he doesn't really know what a watch is, but he looks at this thing, puzzled, and then he says, "Siri, turn on the lights."
Which is a natural thing
It's
for
a natural
someone
thing.
coming along now with none of the background that we've got.
No.
It makes
And-
perfect sense.
And his father's an engineer, right? And so you can be sure he's got his whole house hooked up to all this stuff.
Do
but
we know if the lights went on when he talked to the watch?
No,
Probably
because
not.
it didn't have Siri in it.
Okay, good. Well, bummer.
Yeah, not
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
But the point is, so right, his father's an engineer. Well, as we know, engineers point the way to the future. So yeah, his house is hooked up today. If you're an engineer, tomorrow everybody's house is going to be hooked up.
Yeah.
And not just their house. You carry your phone around. It tracks where you go and what you do. So ultimately, I think an operating system is going to be you. It's
Yeah.
going to be what you do with your life and how you interact with the environment. Because increasingly, the environment's going to be filled with sensors and smart devices and all this stuff.
And things that are listening. It's interesting, I sort of see a little bit of that when I'm in the car. I've got my phone with me, and Maps, has this predictive algorithm that sort of knows that I'm going to work or going to the gym or going home. It predicts, the best route for me before I don't have to do anything. It's just doing it. And so when I look at my map, it's got the routes picked out for me. And, I can talk to Siri if I want to, where's the traffic or where's the gas station or whatever. But in terms of, being able to do stuff, it's just there.
We actually have the capability to do a lot of this now. The voice stuff is not all there yet.
Right.
It's still a work in progress, and it's been so for 20 years. But, I mean, the real problem is that we don't have open standards, or we're not adopting the open standards we have. The vendors are still sort of warring with each other based on the technology that they have. Apple does this a lot,
Right.
But you can imagine if there were ways to interconnect Windows with Apple and do it well. I mean, we've got all the devices now. We've got sensors. What we need is a way to connect them all together in a smart way. And then, even if we were to do it all on one platform, which was probably the most likely way it would happen anytime soon.
Right.
It would be expensive, first of all, but second of all, there would be kinks to work through. I mean, that's complicated. What you were saying. I mean, it's basically IBM's idea of pervasive computing from the early '90s.
That's right.
And taken to where we actually went with mobile, which they couldn't foresee at that time.
Right.
It's kind of a no-brainer, really.
No, I agree.
You're right.
I wonder if IoT at some point is going to be the underlying connector that you're talking about. IoT, or that whole ecosystem, the sensors, and because you're going to have different operating systems, different ways of accessing that data and connecting to it and doing stuff
Collecting
with
data.
Collecting
Right.
it, and we'd like to collect data, judiciously. But no, I mean, seriously, if you're looking for a common platform that no one really owns, it sounds like, IoT might be that in
it's definitely
5 or
part
10
of it.
years.
Right. The only problem, of course, is no common IoT platform.
Right.
And that's
And
that's
and standards too
and
would be an
standards,
issue,
and
right?
that makes the problem even bigger. And I think, Scott, you're right, because what's going to happen is none of these companies, at least in the short term, is going to want to give it up to owning it. They're not going to want to give it to anybody else. Google wants it. Microsoft wants it, Apple wants it, Amazon, they all want it, and they all want it for themselves. And I think they're going to try fighting for their own piece of turf. But I think eventually, one way or another, it'll get there because it has
That's
to.
the history of
Right.
specifications.
That's right.
It's a battle, and then eventually everyone realizes we're all going to make something.
We've
out
got
of
a
this
common
if we-
need.
Right.
Yeah.
How do we do this?
And then there'll be a consortium or
That's right.
an open organization of some sort, and In 10 years, we might.
I was going
start
to say
see
then there'll
the
be 5
beginning.
years of hearings and fights and groups getting together and complaints, and you're ruining this and and this, and then maybe we'll come up with some bottom of the line.
But we have the technology now.
Yes, no, we do.
It's amazing what we could do if we could just get together. Can't we
Right.
all get
Can we
along?
all get along? Yeah, the
It's-
answer
it's
is
true.
no. as
No,
we
we
know.
still can't.
The answer is no. And I think the way it's going to be bits and pieces. It's going to be everybody doing their own operating system first, their own voice-controlled operating system that lives somewhere out in the cloud somewhere that's not connected to a specific device.
Well, I mean, you see that in the home right now, where you've got Amazon is sort of putting out this whole ecosystem of lights and switches and things that you can control with your Echo. Apple has HomeKit and sort of is kind of edging into it, but so you can do some things with Siri and again lights and locks and things like that. Google, same thing, but you've got again three or four or more different sort of ecosystems that don't always necessarily play well together. And until that's just one
And then
little
there are a
corner
bunch
of
of
it.
independent little smaller guys
That's
in,
right.
in both IoT and in smart home, connected home. There's only like 2 voice recognition companies, so that's mature.
Right.
But the rest of this isn't.
Not at all. And, I think one of the issues that may bring everybody together is going to be security. Because
good
obviously
point.
when you
Touche, yeah.
when everything you do is connected to somewhere in the world and it's the operating system, just imagine when your life gets hacked instead of your files getting hacked.
Well, that's true of healthcare stuff.
Right.
With all the healthcare IT and the things that are going on.
Everything.
It is true of everything. Eventually, we'll all be hacked. Wait till they start beaming our consciousness into the internet.
That's right.
And then, of course, that's a little probably down the road. But it is interesting, to bring this back just a little
we
bit.
have the technology.
I don't want to be in the internet yet. I want it to come to me. I don't want to be in it. But it is interesting too, the sort of rise of voice-activated software. Again, you do the speech thing when you're doing all of your emails and everything else. You're just talking.
You do that, really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's painful sometimes.
I
But,
was going to ask how accurate it is.
you have to make a
98%?
lot of corrections, but you're really fast on the first pass. So, it's a matter of how quickly you can make the corrections.
Do you have to use a keyboard or can you do it by voice, corrections by voice?
With a good product, with the Windows version, you can do.
What is
With
it you're
either one,
using?
you can do it, but with both. But the Windows version works better.
What are you using? What's the software?
Dragon.
Dragon.
Oh,
okay.
Dragon. Well, my mother, she's older. She has problems with her hand. She can't really tap. So she has an iPad, and that's her main computer, and she has to do everything by voice. And it's incredibly painful to see her go through this, just how bad it really is for somebody who's not experienced and scared. And
The way those systems work is that you can't see what you're dictating. It doesn't light up the screen until
You're just sort of
pause.
dictating into the ether, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't write out what you said right away, that's really. That doesn't work.
No.
In my opinion.
Because what happens is when it shows up on the screen, you can see that whatever it heard is not what you said.
The way you
Always.
correct things is by proximity. So to then get back, you either have to use your hand or you have to painfully direct it to go back to the word that you need to correct.
right.
Maybe she only corrects things that matter, right? I mean, she's not writing, she's not publishing something.
It's
Not yet.
email. It's basically all mail. And the problem is she can't send it to the right person, or when you do get, it's actually pretty funny, I have to admit, when I get the emails from her, they're pretty hilarious because of how garbled and twisted
Not
it is.
intentionally.
Ken has seen some of my emails that went that way.
Well, we
too.
haven't, we can usually read between the typos and figure out that you're telling us what we need to do for the day. But, all right. So the voice recognition technology, though, as you say, the pieces are there, even if it's still, the interface is kind of kludgy. But, you make a good point. If you've got a lot of people who are maybe not technically savvy, they don't care about operating systems and file systems or whatever, but they can talk and they can hear, when I got my Echo and was sort of talking about it, and we did a show about it, and, my mom's like, I want one of those. Because she wants to just
Right.
be able to say, hey, play some music. Or
I
what,
think a lot of people have bought them very impulsively because they're not that expensive. And,
Right.
we picked up Google Home and Alexa and, at the same time. We just were like, oh, let's check this out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that. They were on sale.
Yeah, well, the Echo was like $59, I think, when I bought it. I think it might have even been less.
No, I think it was less.
It was less, maybe less.
I
Yeah,
think
okay.
it's $50 normally.
Wow.
Okay, maybe it was on sale. But
I
anyway,
think it was 40.
the idea being that, operating systems as we know them are likely to morph in some ways, and whether there's some sort of common platform, whether it's language or the cloud or whatever, the sort of thing where we see regular updates like we're getting now from Microsoft and Apple may very well go away within the next few years, depending on what comes next.
Yeah, I think it's a long time away, this operating system that lives in the cloud that's you. And so I think
It sounds
until
like a scary sci-fi movie,
I
actually.
know.
It knows where you are. It knows what you're doing and where you are, and you can't go there. Open the pod bay doors.
Right, exactly. Then it starts telling you what to do.
Okay, so that's our dystopian future.
It's
for today.
ransomware.
Oh, God. And then it gets hacked, and and it turns you off. All right. All right. On that note, any other thoughts on the future of operating systems or our dystopian future?
No, except I still plan to be there.
I
Computing.
hope to be there. I want to be there, however it's done.
Yeah.
Scott,
Me
any other?
too.
Yeah, I think we'll be there for a while. We're not that old yet.
No.
All right, so that's our quick look at Windows Creators Update coming soon to a PC near you, and our slightly off color version of the future and where operating systems are going. We don't know yet, but I guess we'll all get there together. Preston, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Scott, thanks for stopping by. That's a wrap.
No Facebook, huh?